I always thought of Agile as something just for software developers, coders.
Yeah, for sure.
But looking at all these articles you've given me about how Agile is being used in all these different places,
Mm.
it seems like Agile is, I don't know, popping up everywhere, like even at Panera Bread.
Yeah, it's really interesting, right?
Who knew?
Yeah, even John Deere. They're using it for agriculture, for innovation.
It seems like everybody's trying to get a little more agile, I guess.
Yeah.
So maybe before we dive into these really fascinating examples, can you just remind me, or, for people listening who aren't, coders, what does agile actually mean?
Right.
How's it different from the traditional ways of doing things like waterfall?
Yeah, absolutely. So, think about waterfall, right?
Yeah.
Waterfall is it's very step by step.
Uh-huh.
You plan everything out up front,
Uh-huh.
and then you execute it in like a rigid sequence.
Okay, so very planned out.
Yeah, very planned out. Agile is on the other hand, it's all about being flexible. It's about adapting to change, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So it breaks the project down into smaller cycles. They're called sprints.
Okay.
And within a sprint, the team plans, they execute, they review, and then they adapt based on, what they've learned.
So that makes sense, especially in today's world where things are changing so quickly, right?
Exactly, yeah.
So is that what made it so successful for Panera?
Yeah, I think Panera's story is a great example of how Agile can be used beyond software, right?
Right.
Like you were saying, they're a bread company.
Yeah.
So back in 2013, they were having issues with their mobile ordering system.
Oh, really?
Yeah, and it was slow, it was kind of clunky, and it wasn't really meeting the needs of the customers, right?
Mm-hmm.
So they actually decided to really embrace Agile. They even brought in Agile coaches to help them.
Wow.
And they implemented a specific framework called Disciplined Agile Delivery, or DAD.
Dad. Now that's a new one.
Yeah.
What is Dad?
So it's a framework that provides a more comprehensive way to manage the entire life cycle of the project. It really emphasizes choice, right?
Okay.
So it's tailoring the process to fit the team and the project. So in Panera's case, they had this big problem with the ordering system.
Uh-huh.
And Dadia gave them a structured way to break it down into smaller chunks.
Oh, okay.
So they could kind of adapt as they went.
Yeah. So constantly getting feedback and then changing things.
Exactly.
Yeah. Wow, that's so cool.
Yeah.
And the results, they really speak for themselves, right?
Yeah.
Because they boosted their online sales significantly.
Yeah, their online sales account for a huge portion of their total revenue now.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's clear that Agile really helped them create a system that, was more user-friendly, more efficient.
Yeah. Yeah, totally.
But it also goes beyond, just the bottom line.
Right.
Because Agile can also lead to a more positive and engaging work environment, which is what we see in the example of IBM and their HR department.
Okay, so we went from bread to bureaucracy, it seems.
Yeah, exactly.
So what was going on over at IBM that made them decide that they needed Agile?
Even a company like IBM, right?
Yeah.
Faces challenges.
Of course. Yeah.
So their HR department was having a hard time recruiting and retaining top talent, which is a problem many companies face.
Yeah, for sure.
And they kind of felt bogged down by their traditional process.
Uh-huh.
And they wanted to find a way to empower their employees and be more responsive.
Okay, so how did they use Agile?
Right. So they instead of using DID, they actually implemented something called Agile HR.
Okay.
Which is just using Agile principles, but specifically for HR. Yeah, and one of the things they did was empower employees to form their own cross-functional teams.
Okay.
Instead of being assigned by management.
Wow. Okay, so that's very different.
Yeah, very different.
From the typical, top-down corporate structure.
Exactly.
Did they see any good changes because of that?
Yeah. So because of this new way of working, it led to a more collaborative environment. People were more engaged, and they also implemented something called a backlog.
Oh, okay.
Which is basically just a list of tasks, but it's prioritized.
Okay, so a to-do list.
Yeah, to-do list, exactly.
Okay.
And so this helped the teams to, focus on what was most important.
Okay, yeah.
And not get sidetracked.
Yeah.
And ultimately it led to, improved performance, better work environment.
It's so interesting how this thing that was designed for, software can have such a broad impact, And affect so many different aspects of a business. So, like, you wonder, what about a company like Sky?
Mm-hmm.
They're like this big European entertainment giant.
Right.
How did they use Agile?
So Sky's story is all about how they revolutionized their training programs using Agile principles. So for years, they had been doing like this very traditional, top-down training model.
Okay.
It was like trying to teach someone to drive by giving them like a really long manual,
Okay.
but no time behind the wheel.
Oof. Yeah.
Yeah, and
Well,
so
that sounds familiar.
yeah, it does.
Yeah. So Agile was how they got their like training program on the road, I guess, to use that metaphor.
Yeah, exactly. That's a good one.
Okay.
So by switching to Agile, they were able to like ditch that rigid approach
Uh-huh.
and create programs that were more responsive,
Okay.
more learner-centric.
How did they do that?
So instead of relying on like really long lecture-style sessions, they break the training down into like smaller, more manageable modules.
Okay.
And they incorporated like interactive exercises, simulations,
Yeah.
and gave lots of opportunities for real-time feedback. And Tracy Waters, who's the head of people development and communication at Sky,
Okay.
she even said like that the old way of training was like so wasteful and inefficient. So, Agile helped them address those issues and really create a learning environment that was more engaging and actually gave employees the skills they needed.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah, and because learners and managers could share feedback in real time, they were able to like solve problems way faster.
Oh, interesting. So it was more of like a back and forth,
Exactly, yeah.
like collaborative.
Yeah, more collaborative. Everyone had a voice.
That's so cool.
Yeah.
So that's really impressive how they like transform something as traditional as training, right?
That's right.
By using these Agile principles.
Yeah.
It really challenges this assumption that Agile was just for like really fast-paced, techie kind of things.
Yeah.
But what about a field like law? I mean, it seems like the law is all about process, right?
Right.
Meticulously going through things, like attention to detail.
Yeah.
It's not really known for being flexible.
No.
So that's what makes this story of Lonely Planet's legal team like so interesting to me.
Yeah.
Because they decided to experiment with Agile, which seems counterintuitive.
Yeah.
So how did a team of lawyers embrace this methodology that's known for like rapid iteration, right?
Right.
And like changing things quickly?
Right.
It seems like such a mismatch.
Well, so the legal team was facing all these like crazy deadlines from internal clients who didn't really understand how like complex their work was.
Okay, yeah.
And so that led to a lot of like stress, job dissatisfaction,
Yeah, I can imagine.
And so they decided to like, instead of using a formal framework like Scrum or DIAD, they just decided to pick some of the principles that they could like adapt to their own needs.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah.
So, okay, so they like took the core concepts and kind of like molded them to fit the legal world.
Exactly.
Okay, so what kind of impact did that have like on their actual workflow?
So by using Agile, they were able to like set more realistic expectations with the clients.
Okay.
And they improved like how they communicated with each other. And this helped like reduce the feeling of being like overwhelmed.
Right.
Yeah, and it led to like better relationships between them and like the rest of the company. And it actually like increased their productivity.
Wow. Okay, so like a win-win all around.
Yeah.
Okay, that's a great example of how Agile can be like, adjusted to fit even like the most seemingly rigid kind of workplace, right?
Right.
But speaking of like seemingly rigid, what about marketing? Because Vistaprint's story like really stood out to me.
Yeah.
Because they like drastically shortened their marketing life cycle by switching to Agile.
Exactly.
It was really dramatic.
Yeah, it was like night and day. They went from like a 60-day waterfall approach to like a 15-day Agile cycle.
Wow. Okay, how did they do that?
So they started using daily stand-up meetings.
Okay.
Where the team would like quickly get together and like check in on their progress, see if there are any like roadblocks. They also started using Kanban boards, which are these like visual tools that help teams track their workflow. And they incorporated retrospectives, which are basically just meetings, where the team reflects on what went well and what could be improved.
So they really like went all in on the whole like spectrum of Agile, I guess.
Yeah, exactly.
But like, how did that actually lead to like, tangible results for Vistaprint?
Right. Well, so the daily stand-ups help them stay on top of things
Uh-huh.
and like address any issues quickly. You
No,
know.
so nothing like snowballed.
Right,
Nice.
exactly. And the Kanban boards like gave them this clear visual overview
Uh-huh.
of their projects,
Mhm.
and then the retrospectives help them continuously learn and improve.
Oh, okay. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
So it sounds like, a recipe for success,
Yeah.
especially in an industry where things change so quickly, right?
Right. Yeah.
But it's not just big companies that are like seeing these benefits.
Yeah.
Because one of the articles you sent me was about like a struggling staffing agency
Right.
that used Agile to like turn things around.
Yeah, it's really interesting.
That's a really like powerful example
Yeah.
of how it can be used for any size business, I guess.
Yeah.
So this particular agency was facing like low client satisfaction. It was taking them a long time to fill positions, and like their employee morale was really low.
Yeah.
So like not a great situation.
Yeah, not a great situation. So how did Agile come to the rescue?
So they embraced agile principles like cross-functional teams.
Yeah. Which is where like people from different departments would like work together on a project.
Okay.
And they also started incorporating feedback from clients like all the time.
Okay, so those are both like hallmarks of agile.
Yeah.
But like how did that actually change things?
Well, so client satisfaction went way up.
Hmm.
They were filling positions much faster.
Okay.
Candidates were having a better experience.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and employee morale like got this like big boost.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
So they like really changed everything
Yeah, basically.
by focusing on these like, collaboration and flexibility
Yeah.
and like constantly improving.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's pretty inspiring.
Yeah.
See how it can not only like, help you achieve specific goals, but also like improve the work environment.
Right. Yeah.
But scaling Agile to a company as large as like Spotify seems like a whole other challenge.
Yeah, I mean, Spotify is like the classic example of how to do Agile on a big scale.
Right.
And they have this model, it's called Squads and Tribes,
Okay.
that helps them balance innovation and autonomy, right?
Okay.
With keeping some kind of structure.
Okay, squads and tribes. Break that down for me.
Okay, so imagine squads are these small, like self-organizing teams, kind of like special forces units or something.
Okay.
They each have like a specific mission, and they have a lot of autonomy.
Okay.
Meaning they can choose like how they work and what tools they use
Okay.
to get it done.
Okay.
Then these squads are grouped into larger units called tribes,
Okay.
which are based on like areas of expertise.
Okay.
So
it's like all these teams like doing their own thing, but then like working together.
yeah, exactly. It's like a network of teams.
Okay.
All kind of interconnected.
Okay.
Yeah.
So that lets them be like super flexible.
Exactly. Yeah. They can respond to change so quickly. Like if a new challenge comes up, they can create a new squad really quickly.
Wow. Okay.
Or they can like reconfigure existing ones as things change.
It sounds like a really well-oiled machine.
Yeah.
But I imagine like keeping everyone like on the same page with so many different teams
Yeah.
must be like a constant challenge.
Yeah, for sure.
So how do they manage that?
So they have these things called chapters,
Okay.
which are made up of like people from different squads who have similar skills.
Okay.
So that allows for knowledge sharing,
Okay.
like cross-pollination of ideas.
Okay, cool.
Yeah. And they also really emphasize transparency.
Mm.
So making sure that everyone knows like what everyone else is doing
Okay.
and how it fits into the bigger picture.
So it's like this whole ecosystem, right? Of
Yeah.
all these different teams
They
that
do.
are independent but also collaborative.
Yeah, exactly.
But what about when teams aren't even together physically,
Mm.
like with remote work and everything?
Yeah, well, this article about Redgate Software,
Okay.
when they transitioned to remote work in 2020,
Hmm.
is a really good example of how Agile can be adapted for that.
Okay. Yeah, that was a really interesting article.
Yeah.
So like they already had, 15 years of experience with Agile. But how did their Agile practices like help them with this whole remote thing?
Well, they were really committed to their sprints and their daily stand-up meetings.
Okay.
So even though everyone was working from home,
Huh.
they still had this structure and routine.
Oh, okay, I see.
Yeah, and they used, online tools
Uh-huh.
to like help them communicate and work together.
Okay.
So their experience is kind of like a testament to how Agile can help people stay, connected and productive, even when they're not physically together.
Yeah, for sure. That was really cool to see.
Yeah.
But it's not just about remote work. Because this article about John Deere, really expanded my understanding of what Agile can do. I mean, they're using it in agriculture.
Yeah.
Which is not something I would ever have thought of.
Yeah. I mean, it's a great example of how Agile can be used outside of software development.
Yeah.
They're using Agile to create self-driving tractors and precision planting systems.
Wow.
Yeah.
So wait, Agile isn't just about building apps and websites.
Yeah, it's not at all.
It can be used to innovate in any field.
Exactly. Yeah. They're proving that Agile can be used in any industry where there's a need for, innovation, adaptability, customer focus.
Yeah, totally.
So
it's amazing to think that something that started with tech companies can help farmers improve their yields.
Yeah.
And make food production more efficient.
Exactly.
It's really challenging how I think of Agile.
Yeah.
Who it's for and what it can be used for.
Yeah, that's what's so exciting about Agile, right?
Yeah.
It's always evolving.
Yeah.
And it keeps finding new applications in unexpected places.
Yeah.
It's not just about the specific, methodologies. It's really about a mindset.
Okay.
It's a way of approaching work, problem solving, that emphasizes flexibility, collaboration, and continuous improvement.
Okay, yeah, I'm starting to see why it's becoming so popular across so many different industries, right?
Yeah.
It's not just a set of rules, it's a philosophy that can be adapted to fit all these different challenges, goals.
And it's not limited to one team or one department.
Right.
We're seeing companies adopt Agile principles across their entire organization, from HR to finance to marketing, even strategic planning.
Yeah, I mean, this whole business agility concept is so fascinating.
Yeah.
Because it's helping companies become more, I don't know, nimble, responsive.
Yeah. In a world that's constantly changing.
Right.
But we'll have to save that for the next part of this deep dive.
Yeah, absolutely. There's a lot more to explore when it comes to Agile.
Okay, well, I'm excited to keep going.
Me too.
Okay, I'm starting to get a much better sense of how Agile can be applied in so many different situations. But I'm also wondering about the practical side of things,
Right.
If a company decides, okay, we want to go Agile, where do they even begin?
Yeah.
Are there any specific tools or frameworks they can use?
That's a great question. And it's one that a lot of companies struggle with.
Yeah.
When they first start exploring Agile.
Uh-huh.
But luckily, there are some well-established frameworks that can provide a roadmap.
Okay.
So two of the most popular ones are Scrum and Kanban.
Okay. Yeah, I've definitely heard those terms before, but I have to admit I'm not entirely clear on what they actually mean or how they're different. Sure. So think of Scrum as a recipe for Agile project management.
Okay.
So it provides a clear set of roles, events, and artifacts that help teams work together effectively. It's like having a blueprint for implementing Agile in a structured and repeatable way.
Okay. So Scrum is all about structure and process.
Yes, exactly.
So what are some of the key elements of Scrum?
So one of the core concepts in Scrum is the idea of sprints.
Okay.
Which are these short time-boxed iterations that typically last 1 to 4 weeks.
Okay.
And each sprint follows a specific cycle.
Okay.
It goes planning, execution, review, and then retrospective.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds very cyclical,
Yeah.
which I guess makes sense for Agile.
It does, yeah.
So walk me through what happens during each of those phases.
Okay, so at the beginning of a sprint, the team holds a sprint planning meeting. And that's where they decide what they're going to work on during that sprint. And they break down the work into smaller tasks, and they estimate how much effort is required for each one.
Okay.
Then they get to work, and they meet daily for a brief stand-up meeting.
Yeah.
And that's where they discuss their progress and any obstacles they're facing.
Oh, okay. Yeah, those stand-up meetings sound like a good way to stay on track and catch any problems early on.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's much more efficient than waiting for a weekly meeting.
Right, yeah, totally.
To discuss progress.
So at the end of the sprint, then what happens?
So at the end of the sprint, the team holds a sprint review.
Okay.
And that's where they demonstrate what they've built and get feedback from stakeholders.
Hmm.
So it's an opportunity to, celebrate achievements and gather valuable insights for future iterations.
Okay.
Then finally, they hold a sprint retrospective.
Okay.
And that's where they reflect on, like, what went well and what could be improved for the next sprint.
So it's like a built-in mechanism for continuous improvement.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, that's the goal.
That's so cool. But who's in charge of all this?
Right. So Scrum has 3 key roles.
Okay.
You have the product owner, the Scrum Master, and the development team.
Okay.
So the product owner is responsible for setting the vision for the product
Okay.
and making sure the team is working on the most valuable features.
Okay.
They're kind of like the voice of the customer,
Right.
ensuring that the team is building the right things.
That sounds like a really important role.
It is, yeah, very important.
What about the Scrum Master then? What do they do?
So the Scrum Master acts as a facilitator and a coach. So they help the team understand and implement Scrum principles.
Okay.
Remove any obstacles that might hinder their progress, and just make sure that the Scrum process is being followed effectively.
Okay, so they're like the guardian of the Scrum process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
It's
Okay.
making sure everyone is like on the same page and following the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, and then the development team, who are they? Right, so the development team are the people who actually design, build, and test the product.
Okay.
They're a cross-functional group, meaning they have all the skills necessary to, complete the work within the sprint.
Okay, so it's like they have this mini agile task force with like clearly defined roles and responsibilities.
Exactly.
Okay, that makes a lot of sense for managing complex projects.
Yeah.
But what about Kanban then?
Right.
How does that compare to Scrum?
So Kanban is a bit different.
Okay.
While Scrum provides a very structured and prescriptive approach, Kanban is more about visualizing workflow and optimizing for flow.
Okay, visualizing workflow.
Yeah.
What does that actually look like?
So imagine like a whiteboard
Okay.
with columns that represent different stages of your work process, like to do, in progress, and done.
Okay.
And each task is represented by like a sticky note that moves from column to column as it progresses through the workflow.
Oh, okay. I can see the appeal of that,
Yeah.
especially for like visual people.
Right.
Like, it'd be very helpful to just see at a glance like what the status is of
Exactly.
each task.
Yeah.
But how does that visual approach like actually help you optimize the workflow?
So one of the key principles of Kanban is limiting work in progress, or WIP. And this means setting limits on the number of tasks that can be in each stage of the workflow at any given time.
Okay. So you don't have like too many things piling up in one column.
Exactly. Yeah.
Okay.
It prevents bottlenecks and ensures that work is like flowing smoothly.
So it's like finding that like sweet spot between keeping people busy, but also making sure nothing gets stuck.
Exactly.
It's almost like a traffic management system for work.
That's a great analogy.
So by limiting WIP, you can prevent like tasks from piling up in one stage and creating delays later on.
Exactly. Yeah. And it helps teams identify and address bottlenecks much more quickly. So everyone is working at their optimal capacity.
Okay, so if both Scrum and Kanban are like agile frameworks, how do you decide which one is right for you?
So choosing between Scrum and Kanban really depends on like your team's needs and their working style. So Scrum is a good choice for teams that are new to Agile or projects that require a high degree of structure and predictability.
Okay, so Scrum is kind of like the training wheels.
Yeah, you could say that.
It's like a good starting point.
Yeah.
For people who are just like getting into Agile,
Yeah.
it's like a structured framework that's relatively easy to understand.
Exactly.
Okay, what about Kanban then?
So Kanban is more flexible and adaptable. So it's a good option for teams that are already comfortable with Agile principles
Okay.
or projects that are more fluid and unpredictable.
Okay, so it's like Agile for like the seasoned veterans
You could say that.
who are comfortable with a little bit more freedom, I
Right.
guess. And I imagine there are situations where you might want to combine the two,
Yeah, absolutely.
like a hybrid approach.
Yeah, there's no one-size-fits-all answer when it comes to Agile frameworks. The important thing is to find an approach that helps your team be more effective,
Yeah.
collaborative, and customer-focused.
And that might involve taking pieces of different frameworks
Yeah,
and like kind of, making your own thing.
exactly. Yeah, just adapting them to fit your needs.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Well, we've seen some really great examples of companies doing that right.
We have, yeah.
Like Panera used DAD-D for their mobile ordering. IBM implemented Agile HR.
Yeah.
And Sky adopted those Agile principles for their training programs. I'm curious to hear about, like, other examples, especially in industries that, might not seem like a natural fit for Agile.
Right. Well, one fascinating example comes from the financial world.
Okay.
Akbank, which is a Turkish bank,
Okay.
decided to embrace Agile on a grand scale by creating what they called a Scrum Army.
A Scrum Army.
Yeah.
Okay, that sounds intense.
Yeah, it was a bold move, and it involved a lot of training
Uh-huh.
and cultural change.
Okay.
So they trained hundreds of employees in Scrum
Oh.
and created dedicated Agile teams across different departments.
Okay, so they really, like, fully committed.
They did,
Yeah,
yeah.
this whole Agile transformation.
Yeah,
Did they see results?
they did, yeah, absolutely.
Okay, what kind of results?
So by embracing Scrum's principles of, flexibility and collaboration, they were able to improve their efficiency,
Okay.
speed up their product development cycles, and boost their customer satisfaction ratings.
Wow. Okay, so it sounds like they really, like, embraced the spirit of Agile, not just the mechanics.
Exactly.
Okay, well, that's pretty amazing. What about other industries, though? Has Agile made any inroads into, like, healthcare or government?
Yeah, so one notable example comes from Boa Vista, which
Oh.
is a Brazilian credit bureau.
Okay.
They were facing a lot of bureaucratic hurdles
Uh-huh.
and delays in their product development process.
Okay, yeah, so like the classic symptoms of waterfall.
Yeah, exactly.
Slow and flexible,
Yeah,
not keeping up with the times.
right.
So what did they do?
So they decided to ditch their cumbersome waterfall model
Okay.
and transition to Agile teams using Scrum.
So they went from like this rigid linear process to this more flexible iterative approach.
Exactly.
Did it work?
Yeah, it did.
What happened?
So the switch to Scrum led to some pretty remarkable improvements
Okay.
in their speed and efficiency.
Mm.
They were able to develop and launch new products much faster,
Go.
respond to market changes more effectively,
Mm.
and just create a more collaborative,
Okay.
innovative work environment.
It seems like Agile's benefits really do like transcend industry boundaries.
Yeah.
It's not about the specific product or service. It's
Yeah.
about creating a more adaptable and responsive organization.
Exactly. Yeah.
But what about companies like British Telecom? Companies that are often associated with like complex legacy systems and
Right.
processes.
Yeah.
Can Agile even work in those environments?
Yeah. So British Telecom is a great example of how even large established companies with complex systems can benefit from Agile principles.
Okay.
So they were facing major inefficiencies in their project management processes, which was preventing them from innovating
Okay.
and keeping up with the rapidly changing telecom industry.
Okay, so they were struggling to keep up with the pace of change.
Yeah, exactly.
That they do.
So they decided to adopt Agile principles
Okay.
and the Scrum framework across their organization.
Wow. Okay,
Yeah.
so that's a pretty big undertaking
It was, yeah.
for a company like British Telecom.
Yeah, it involved a significant shift in mindset
Yeah.
and a commitment to training their employees.
Okay, did they see any positive results?
They did, yeah.
Okay, what happened?
So they saw big improvements in their communication, planning productivity. Their teams became more self-organizing
Okay.
and empowered to make decisions.
Okay, so they really embraced that agile mindset.
They did, yeah.
It's encouraging to see a company like British Telecom, embrace agile and actually find success with it.
Yeah.
It shows that even organizations with long-standing traditions and really complex systems can benefit
Yeah,
from agile principles.
for sure.
What about tech giants like Sony? Are they using agile to stay ahead of the curve?
Yeah, so Sony is another great example of how Agile can help even the most innovative companies stay competitive.
Okay.
So they used Agile to break down large, complex projects into smaller, more manageable chunks,
Okay.
enabling them to adapt quickly to changing market trends and customer feedback.
Right, because that's one of the key benefits of agile, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
The ability to respond to change quickly and efficiently.
Exactly.
What specific benefits did Sony see?
So by embracing Agile, they were able to reduce their time to market
Oh, okay.
for new products.
Okay.
They improved the quality of their software,
Mm-hmm.
and they created a more collaborative and engaged work environment for
Okay.
their teams.
Okay, so it sounds like Agile is really proving its worth
Yeah,
across a wide range of industries and company sizes.
it is.
I
Yeah.
mean, it's not just a fad. It's
Yeah.
really like a fundamental shift
Mm.
in the way we think about work and problem solving.
Yeah, for sure.
What are some of the common threads that run through all of these successful Agile implementations?
I think one of the most important takeaways from all these examples
Mm.
is that Agile is not just about following a set of rules
Right.
or using a specific framework.
Mm-hmm.
It's about adopting a new mindset. It's a way of thinking and approaching problems
Okay.
that emphasizes flexibility,
Uh-huh.
collaboration, and continuous improvement.
So it's not just about the mechanics. It's
Yeah.
about the philosophy
Exactly.
behind it. Yeah.
Okay, and that philosophy seems to be resonating with a lot of different companies
Yes.
across a lot of different sectors.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to someone who is just starting out on their Agile journey?
Mhm.
What are the most important things to keep in mind?
I would say start small,
Okay.
experiment, and don't be afraid to fail.
Okay.
Agile is all about iterative learning
Yeah.
and continuous improvement.
Mm.
You're not going to get it perfect right away,
Yeah.
and that's okay.
Right.
The key is to embrace the process of experimentation
Okay.
and learn from your mistakes along the way.
So it's about the journey.
Yeah.
Not just the destination.
Exactly.
And being willing to try new things
Right.
and adjust as you go.
Yeah.
And I imagine it's important to remember that Agile isn't one size fits all.
It's not.
What works for one team or project
Mm-hmm.
might not work for another.
Exactly.
So be flexible, be adaptable.
Yeah.
Find what works for you. Yeah, find what works best for you and your organization.
That's great advice. Agile is all about embracing change and being willing to adapt.
Yeah.
It's not about rigidly adhering to rules.
Mhm.
It's about finding the right approach
Right.
for your specific situation
Exactly.
and continuously improving as you go.
Yeah, you got it. And that's what makes Agile so powerful.
Mm.
It's not a fixed methodology.
Right.
It's a set of principles
Mm.
that can be applied in countless ways
Okay.
to achieve a wide range of goals.
Okay, as we wrap up this part of our Agile deep dive,
Mm.
I'm feeling pretty inspired by all these examples
Yeah.
of companies using Agile to transform their businesses.
Yeah.
It seems like there's no industry that can't benefit from these principles.
You're right. We've seen Agile applied in everything from, software development and banking
Mm-hmm.
to agriculture and entertainment.
Yeah.
And as the world becomes increasingly complex and fast-paced,
Mm.
I think the need for Agile will only continue to grow.
Speaking of the future of Agile. Yeah.
I'm curious to explore that further. What are some of the emerging trends and challenges that we should be aware of
Mm-hmm.
as Agile continues to evolve?
Right.
That's what we'll be tackling in the next part of our deep dive. We've really covered a lot of ground, right?
Oh, we have.
In our exploration of Agile. From its beginnings in software to all these different applications like banking and agriculture, even entertainment.
Right.
But as with anything, it's not static.
Mm.
Agile's always evolving.
It is.
So what's next?
Yeah.
What trends and challenges should we be paying attention to as we look ahead?
Yeah, I mean, you're right. Agile is not just a set of rules, right? It's
Right.
this living, breathing philosophy.
And the world of work's constantly evolving too.
Exactly.
So Agile has to as well.
It does, yeah.
So what's on the horizon for Agile?
Well, one of the most significant trends, I think, is the rise of what's called business agility.
Okay, business agility.
Yeah. So it's taking those Agile principles and applying them to not just teams,
Right.
but the whole
Yeah,
organization.
that organization, yeah.
Okay, so scaling it up,
Exactly.
what does that actually look like?
So imagine a company where every single department,
Huh?
from marketing and sales to finance to HR,
Mm.
they all embrace these principles of flexibility,
Okay.
adaptability,
Mm.
and really focusing on the customer.
Okay.
That's the essence of business agility.
It sounds like a pretty big shift, honestly, from how a lot of companies operate.
It is.
That traditional top-down kind of thing.
Right. It is a big shift.
What are the benefits of doing that, though?
Well, I mean, in today's world, the market is so unpredictable.
Right.
Companies need to be able to change quickly, right?
Yeah, keep up.
Respond effectively.
Mm.
And business agility helps them do that.
Okay.
Like, it helps them adapt to new trends,
Mm-hmm.
embrace new technologies, like respond to what customers are saying quickly.
So it's like a competitive advantage.
It is, yeah, definitely.
Okay, but how do companies actually do that? Like,
Right.
how do they become more business agile?
Well, there are a bunch of frameworks, models that can help.
Okay.
One of the most popular ones is the Scaled Agile Framework,
Okay.
or SAFe.
Safe, okay.
Yeah, and it's specifically designed to help large companies implement these agile principles at scale.
Okay, so it's kind of like a blueprint for taking agile and making it work for the whole company.
Yeah, you could think of it that way.
Okay.
It provides a set of principles, practices, roles
Okay.
that help, align teams, streamline processes, and ultimately deliver value faster.
Sounds pretty comprehensive.
It is.
Is it like a one-size-fits-all, though?
It's not, no.
Or does it need to be adapted?
It definitely needs to be adapted. It's more like guidelines
Right.
than like strict rules.
Yeah.
So each organization needs to take it and adapt it to fit their own needs and their own culture.
So it's not about like just blindly following, some framework.
Right, exactly.
It's about understanding the principles
Yeah,
and applying them in a way that makes sense for you.
exactly.
And I imagine that like becoming more business agile is not something that happens overnight.
No, it's definitely a journey.
It's an ongoing process.
Yeah, it's continuous. You're constantly learning, adapting, improving. And it really requires everyone to kind of change their mindset.
The whole company.
The whole company, yeah.
Okay, so that's one like major trend, business agility. What are some other developments we should be thinking about?
Well, another really important trend is how agile is being integrated with other methodologies and technologies.
Okay.
So you see agile being combined with lean principles, DevOps practices, design thinking, even artificial intelligence.
Okay, that's a lot, but I guess it makes sense. Like the world is becoming more complex,
Right.
so we need, I guess, more sophisticated approaches to like solving problems.
Exactly.
Can you give me an example of like how agile is being combined with something else?
Yeah, so take DevOps.
Okay.
So DevOps is a set of practices that focuses on automating and streamlining the software development process, right?
Okay.
When you combine that with Agile, it can help teams deliver software much faster, more reliably.
So it's like creating the smooth flow from the initial idea to actually getting it out there.
Exactly, yeah, getting rid of those bottlenecks so that you can release updates quickly and efficiently.
Wow, okay, that's cool. What about AI?
Yeah.
Like agile and artificial intelligence?
So that's one of the most exciting areas right now, I think. Imagine using AI to analyze data from past sprints
Okay.
and identify patterns that can help predict future performance.
Oh, interesting.
Or even automate those routine tasks.
Right.
So teams can focus on more strategic work.
Oh, that would be great, like an agile robot assistant.
Right.
What else could AI do you think?
Well, AI could be used to personalize training and development for agile teams.
Okay.
Provide feedback in real time. Even help communication across different teams.
Okay.
If they're not all in the same place.
So AI could really supercharge agile.
Yeah, it could.
Make it even better. But I imagine there are some challenges too.
Yeah.
Like with bringing in all these new technologies. Yeah. What are some of those?
One of the big ones is making sure that AI is being used in a way that aligns with Agile's values. Transparency, collaboration, continuous improvement.
Okay. Yeah.
We have to remember that AI should be a tool.
Right.
To help people.
Yeah.
Not replace them.
Yeah. Yeah, that's a really good point.
Yeah.
So as we look ahead to the future of Agile, what are some of the key takeaways?
Well, I think the most important thing to remember is that Agile is more than just practices and frameworks, right? It's a mindset. It's a way of thinking and approaching work that emphasizes flexibility, collaboration, and always focusing on delivering value for the customer.
So embracing change, empowering people, and just constantly trying to improve.
Yeah, and it's something you can apply anywhere.
Yeah.
Not just software.
Yeah, that's what we've seen today.
We have, yeah.
So as Agile keeps evolving, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens.
It is, yeah.
How organizations use it, how individuals use it.
Yeah, definitely.
To solve problems and create a better future of work.
Exactly.
Well, that brings us to the end of our deep dive into the world of Agile.
Yeah.
I have to say, I learned a lot,
Mm.
and I'm definitely feeling inspired by its potential
Mm-hmm.
to change how we work.
Yeah, it's been great exploring this with you,
Yeah, thanks for joining me.
of course.
And to everyone listening, thanks for tuning in to this deep dive.